New year, same extra value meals at McDonald's. Now get a savory sausage McMuffin with egg, plus hash browns, and a small coffee for just $5. For limited time only, prices and participation may vary. Prices may be higher in Hawaii, Alaska, and California, and for delivery.
Quiet Riot. Hello, and welcome to Quiet Riot Sunday School, the draft resignation letter to Thursday's full-fat P45 showdown. I'm Naomi.
And I'm Kenny.
How are you, Kenny?
I'm all right. I've just done my second back-to-back Traitors
Catch up.
mega sit-down.
No spoilers, no spoilers. Don't worry, listeners, we won't reveal anything you might not be caught up on. It's good. I didn't think it was. I watched the first episode and was like, yeah, it's not as good as Celebrity Traitors. And then I persisted, and by episode 3, I was in hook, line, and sinker.
Were you not into it in previous series?
Nope, never watched them.
I even got my sister into it. She was completely against the idea. I felt quite guilty. It's kind of like, I feel like I've been encouraging her to do the media equivalent of eating Mars bars or pot noodles or something. It's like, no, watch the Traitors, good TV. Yeah. And episode 1, she had no idea what's going on. But like you, episode 2, scratch his chin.
Yeah.
Episode 3, utter addict. And I've got to tell her to stop sending me messages now and spoilers left, right and centre.
I don't think we should be encouraging duplicity and celebrating devious behaviour. I don't. There is too much of it anyway.
My sister is anything but duplicitous. I've never met a less duplicitous person in my life. She's utterly glorious, but she's a Campbell, so she appreciates the dark side of life as well.
Yeah, and look, January's bleak, so anything that gets us through, I'm grateful for.
Here.
How are you coping with 2026 so far?
Do you know what I'm doing? I'm spending 2026 so far restructuring, doing all that sort of start of the year stuff.
Yeah.
Because I'm in London, I'm spending the rest of the time dodging viruses.
Yeah.
Just that time of the year when I get on the underground, I always avoid rush hour if I can. But, public transport's a good thing if it's too far to walk. But at this time of the year, it gives me the fear just walking down.
Wear a mask. On trains and planes, I always wear a mask. And people give me dirty looks for it, and I don't care because it does reduce transmission, and more of us should do it. We should make like the East Asians and mask up in big super spreader areas.
The number of people who still sit on public transport and just cough,
I know,
with the tongue
without
hanging out,
attempting to cover up their mouth.
It beggars belief. I don't know where they were raised or who raised them.
People are revolting. So, Kenny, let's get on with the show. What are we doing today?
All right, well, we'll kick off in earnest shortly, but please remember to help this little show out if you can. You can follow us on socials, of course, and thanks to you all that do, particularly in Blue Sky. You can leave us reviews, and you can always bug us a few quid at ko-fi.com/quiet-riot-pod. Every little does help.
What are we going to talk about today, Kenneth? I would love to have a good giggle with you about Jenrick's sacking, defection, the media obsession with psychodrama, and the government's inability to prize the agenda away from Farage and Badenoch.
All right, you've got a big yes from me on that one. And I've got a kind of a left field idea.
Okay.
But look, politics globally is so insane. And I wanted to see if we couldn't bring, bear with me listeners here, some shape to the madness via illustrator and cartoonist god Chuck Jones, his 10 rules for Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote as applied to politics.
Okay, you're going to have to walk me through that one, but it sounds fun, peculiar, but fun. And seeing as Alex didn't have time for a Wokie Dokie on the Thursday show, I really think we should stick one of those in too.
Okay, right you are. Let's get this episode on the road then.
Quiet Riot.
This morning, I removed the Conservative whip from Robert Jenrick after dismissing him from the shadow cabinet. I was very sorry to be presented with clear, irrefutable evidence, not just that he was preparing to defect, but he was planning to do so in the most damaging way possible to the Conservative Party and his shadow cabinet colleagues.
Well, the main reason why Alex isn't on today's show is that he's still laughing uncontrollably about the events that unfurled on Thursday, as Kemi took to a blurry webcam to publicly sack Robert Jenrick from the shadow cabinet, removed a Tory whip, and suspended his party membership. All this against the backdrop of a Farage press conference that was meant to be launching Lord Offord into the leadership role of Reform's head honcho in Scotland. Been a long time coming, that one. But which was quickly railroaded by Rob being given his marching orders. The whole thing appeared to take Farage by surprise, but never one to miss an opportunity to cash in, he rushed back to London to hold a second press conference, warmly welcoming yet another failed Tory into his ranks, albeit one he'd previously described as a fraud, Robert the generic, Robert the Remainer, and Robert the I don't stand particularly for anything at all. Naomi, is just priceless, isn't it? Events as they unfurled. Nigel originally claims that no, there's no deal here. Then, I don't know what this is about. And then, well, yeah, we had agreed in principle. Let's have a listen to what was said.
I'm not for a moment going to tell you that I'd not been talking to a certain Robert Jenrick for some weeks, some months. I had been talking to many other people as well. You saw one earlier this week, Nadeem Zahawi, a former chairman and indeed Chancellor of the Exchequer. But let me make it absolutely clear that when it leaked out of Robert Jenrick's office that he'd been preparing some notes and thoughts about what he would do, what he would say, how he would play it when he came, he wasn't going to join at 4:30 today. No, I'm sorry, Kemi, you've jumped the gun. You've added up 2 and 2 and made 5. He wasn't going to join today. He wasn't going to join tomorrow. He wasn't going to join next week. In fact, knowing what these negotiations are like, he might not have joined at all. So the Conservative leadership have jumped the gun on this. They've hoofed him out of the party, fearing he would appear today at 4:30 on this platform alongside me. And I've had to think very quickly. And I just want to say thank you to Kemi Badenoch. This is the latest Christmas present I've ever had. The negotiations with Jenrick are over. There's nothing more to be said or to be done. You've handed me on a plate the man that is by far the most popular figure, 60% approval rating on Con Home compared to our own 38. And you've perhaps today really done anything, more than anybody in history, to help realign the centre-right of British politics, which is much needed against a dreadful Labour government and an increasingly worrying extreme left-wing voice in this country. So I can't offer you drinks all round, but I'll buy Kemi lunch next week and say thank you. And on that note, I will welcome Robert Jenrick into this room and into Reform UK.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think Kemi played it well. Clearly, someone leaks Jenrick's speech, his defection speech. We've got excerpts of that went to the media. That's why there was a bit of bungle beginning to that second press conference when Farage welcomes him on stage and he doesn't appear because apparently he was editing his speech to remove the bits that Kemi had already given the media. I think she handled it quite well. There was probably only one thing she could do, and it made her look good and strong. I think Stephen Bush said, this is very coded as being woman dumps lover after finding he had an affair. I don't think that's a burn. I think in a modern era, we uphold women that say, fuck off, out of here, when they've been cheated on. And she was. So I think, it reflected well on her. And then you have this sort of mad situation where Farage is allowing Lord Offord to be, taking up his pole position in Scotland. A staffer comes over and is like, Mr. Farage, I think you need to look at this. He's then watching Kemi's video on a little handheld device and has to react in the moment. He then appears to not tell the truth. I don't know what this is about. I've got no deal going on with him. I'm talking to lots of people, blah, blah, blah. And then hours later, no, we did have a deal. We were talking. It was an agreement in principle. Really glad to have my old mate Rob here. So it was a dramatic day for those that give a shit about this, which is precisely 0.001% of the population of SW1 obsessives. I include us in that, probably some of our listeners, and of course, all of the media.
I mean, I tend to agree with most of what you said there, in that it was, relatively speaking, it was a very good day for Kemi. I think that also reminds us of just how low the bar is on that front, though. But she looked decisive, she looked tough, and she did look like somebody doing the sacking rather than being sacked, which I think is always a positive in these situations. It's definitely progress. But it's also a bit like applauding someone for successfully closing a door after the house is already burned to the ground. There was more in a bit about that. And, competent theatre, which it definitely was, isn't quite the same thing as, it doesn't equal strategic recovery, if that makes sense.
But I do wonder if her marginal recovery is why he did what he did. This is a man who very recently ran to lead the party, was touted as being the obvious successor post the May elections, when it is highly anticipated the Tories will do poorly and the men in grey suits will tap her on the shoulder and tell her to go. But all of a sudden, he decides, no, that's not my game plan anymore. And it will have been, I assume, a combination of watching Tory poll ratings improve a tiny bit, her performance at PMQs not being as terrible as it was right at the beginning, and a combination of that, and then probably Farage saying, well, I'll give you a juicy job.
There's another element, I think, to why he jumped, and this is clearly not something that has happened overnight, but Jenrick's route to the leadership of the Conservative Party, I think, comes via the results of the May elections, come what may. And his jumping now paints an even bleaker picture for those Conservatives, I think, vis-a-vis what they can expect from the May elections, because it's long been held that Kemi is being kept in post on the assumption that she'll be a very useful lightning conductor should things all go as badly wrong as we anticipate they will do for the Conservative Party in May. My initial take on Jenrick moving at this stage was, well, it's naked political opportunism. Where is the opportunity? It's the political equivalent of follow the money. My initial reaction was, crikey, they must have access to figures that suggest that the May drubbing is going to be even bigger than we thought.
I challenge anyone to argue other than that Britain is completely broken. Those that came before us built a great country, the greatest country in the world, but we are set to lose it. We will, for certain, if this government gets re-elected. I can't kid myself anymore. The party hasn't changed, and it won't. The bulk of the party don't get it. They don't have the stomach for the radical change that Britain needs. In opposition, it is easy to paper over these cracks, but the divisions, the delusions are still there. And if we don't get the next government right, Britain will likely slip beyond the point of repair.
I mean, Jenrick's speech itself, which was a pretty full-throated attack on everybody, it seems, Shadow Cabinet, the Tories, the Labour government. I mean, he listed a whole huge list of failings that his government and he himself helped oversee. What was your take on it?
Look, he really went hard on the Britain is broken narrative. He talked the country down by listing dozens of failings that his government and even he himself very, very personally oversaw. And on the latter, housing, Exhibit A.
Yeah.
In the case of Broken Britain, Robert Jenrick was the one holding the hammer. He was Housing Secretary for a few years during the last government. So he goes on to list, both major parties have failed Britain. Okay, well, you just come from a long stint in a party that was in government for most of that time. He said the Tories lack the stomach for radical change. He talked about rising migration, backlog in the courts, overflowing prisons, the reduced size of the army, and any lack of accountability for past mistakes within the party. This general sense that the Tory party hasn't changed, therefore can't deliver reform. He talks about young people not being able to afford homes, see above, that the rate of house building is too slow. He talked about affordability crisis. He talked about all sorts of things that he is extremely responsible for, because he sat in a party that had the reins of power for the majority of the last 20 years. And it's this unashamed brazenness with which he talked that I think will be a problem for Farage. And Kemi is right to say, Rob is no longer my problem. He is now yours. He is a truth twister. He is a shapeshifter. He is somebody who has had his own scandals follow him around the place. So I think that speech was in stark contrast to Farage's on delivery. It was very much politician speaking in angry tone in a way Farage can do it also calmly and jovially and jocularly, while landing a lot of punches and looking extremely relaxed while doing it. Rob looked brittle and angry, and I don't think that will go down well with those reform voters who are backing the party because they felt that the status quo Tory party had failed them so poorly.
I think those are very good words you used as well. I mean, angry and brittle was how he came across to me. It was the political equivalent of smashing a vase and then giving a TED talk on the decline of ceramics. And, if we ever wonder why trust in politics is so very, very low, I think Jenrick's speech should be bottled and sold on as evidence. It was from that respect, really quite depressing, that performance, I thought.
When you look at housing in particular and his own West Ferry scandal, he personally intervened while housing secretary in a major planning decision on the West Ferry print works. And that helped to create all sorts of appearance of bias. And he eventually accepts that the decision should be quashed. He had to apologise. Costs got reimbursed. But it undercuts any claim of being an outsider.
Oh, yeah.
Of being an outsider critic of a broken planning system that is perpetuating the housing crisis that we've got in front of us. And he bears a great deal of responsibility on that. And he showed no contrition. He just showed flagrant anger. I've been sat around shadow cabinet. They refuse to admit that Britain is broken, or they admit it but say we can't say it out loud because it was us that did it. Well, I'm going to break ranks from you all. I'm going to say it's broken. I'm going to say, yes, we did do it. And me and all my other former Tory chums that are now in reform, well, next time we'll change it under new branding. We'll be able to change it. It won't wash, I don't think. What do you think about the number of egos, and they're not entirely male egos, because you've got your Andrew Jenkins, you've got your Layla Cunninghams, but you have now got Zia Youssef, you've got Richard Tice, you've got Nadeem Zahawi, and now Robert Jenrick, all of whom presumably will want that coveted shadow chancellor role. How is that going to play out for Farage? How is he going to handle for big egos with big ambitions very, very close to his centre of power?
Look, it's a secondary consideration for Farage. Farage is a man who has become extremely adept at using politics for his own ends since his days in Europe. Let's remember, he's still got a European pension coming through the door. He's by far the most successful in financial terms member of Parliament. When you look at how much he's able to stick in his bank accounts over the course of a year, having those big beasts in the party will bring in money. And that, I strongly suspect, is going to keep Mr. Farage exceptionally happy indeed. Now, his desire for power is, nobody's denying that either. But it's a very business-oriented approach that he takes. And let's face it, when inevitably those big beasts that we just listed start to fall out, that's all going to be box office. In that respect, there's an argument to be made that says he can't really lose from this approach. While he's got the big beasts all in the tent, great, it's box office of a sort, and every time he gets another defection, it's more box office.
Well, he's saying that defections have to happen before the May election. And after that, the door is closed, no more of you are welcome, e.g. jump now or be cast aside forever. And he's saying that to Labour figures as well as Tory, and teasing us with, I'm going to have a name, a big name associated with Labour. He hasn't said it's a Labour MP or peer or, former whatever within the party, but he's claiming that that's coming soon. I don't know that I agree. I think when we look at how he has failed in the past and his previous outfits that he's run very successfully initially, but that have then collapsed around him or he's walked away from, it's because that cult of personality can't be challenged. And if he cannot manage in a way that is acceptable to each of these other very big figures, two of whom are major financial backers, their ambitions, their hopes and dreams, to do a deal with them for, okay, one day I'll step aside and you'll inherit the crown, I think he could come undone. I think this is quite a dangerous zone for him to be in, to have so many of them all vying for the same thing. He can't keep them all happy.
Quiet, Riot. You didn't start a business just to keep the lights on. You're here to sell more today than yesterday. You're here to win. Lucky for you, Shopify built the best converting checkout on the planet. Like the just one tapping, ridiculously fast acting, sky-high sales stacking, champion of checkouts. That's the good stuff right there. So if your business is in it to win it, win with Shopify. Start your free trial today at shopify.com/win.
Quiet, Riot.
If you were a non-politician at the age that Farage is, that sort of late 50s, early 60s part of life that people get to when they start thinking, what happens if I have to put my feet up? Is retirement an option? Is it something to consider? Frankly, the way things have gone for Farage, he's not going to have to worry about his old age, is he? I mean, even if things go incredibly wrong, short of screwing up to the point where he gets banged up, he's sorted. And his approach has definitely set him up for life. Not that he needed it. He had a successful career beforehand, of course. But I've always got this idea that if we view Farage through the same lens that we view traditional politicians, we're looking at him through the wrong set of glasses, if that makes sense. I don't think he's driven by the same menu of outcomes and ambitions that traditional politicians are driven by. And that being the case, I don't think traditional outcomes are necessarily what he would view as being successful or failures either. And that's one of his great secrets, and it's why he's such a powerful agenda setter, because he can break the rules that traditional politicians can't go anywhere near. And he's exceptionally adept at it, for better or for worse.
Well, looking at the less fortunate, shall we say, Lord Offord, poor old him, he got completely overshadowed. Did you see the clip? And listeners will try and find a version that works for audio, of an ITV News interviewer asking him questions. He gets agitated. He doesn't want to answer them. And then a staffer from Reform UK physically handles the news reporter and tries to sort of wrestle him away from the interview.
So you're saying you have no idea? Many politicians have felt strongly about this, to come out and say that was a dog whistle, that shouldn't have been said. On the spot right now, I'm asking, was that something that you would say?
Just moving on from that.
No, I'll ask the questions that I would like to ask. So it's an important...
2 minutes.
I mean, that's not what we want to talk about.
This was a really important part of the last time that reform...
I've answered it twice. I've answered it twice.
Yeah, I've asked you whether you disavow it.
I told you twice.
I'm sorry, please, you don't have to handle me. This is a question. Are you going to repeat that message?
As I said, there's many issues in the election. I want to cover all of them. You're only talking about one.
I'm just that you've not answered that question.
That is surely not a good look for the party, and I think does expose a brittleness that outside of Farage as a media performer, I think is very much there in the party.
Yeah, and you've nailed it. And that's the thing. Again, Farage's ability to perform in front of the cameras is legendary. Look, he screwed up himself. He doesn't like being called out on particular issues. He does have a fragility, but it's buried under a lot of armour most of the time. The people that he's bringing on board, and we all know the sort of people we're talking about, it's not difficult to pigeonhole them, do have a fragility. And, it's going to be up to the media and other parties to really, really get under the skin and exploit that. Because the more that fragility can be exposed, the more unelectable the whole bunch of, the whole bunch of them become. But, again, though, there's this little part of me that goes, it doesn't look good, but my goodness me, it's dominating headlines in its own way, isn't it?
I know. I mean, look, we had two parties, neither of whom are in government, dominating the news for the entire day and much of the following day. And I wanted to ask you, Kenny, is that an indictment on our media class being obsessed with right-wing psychodrama even more than they are with general political psychodrama? Or is it on our government for failing to seize the agenda back? Or both?
We're talking specifically about broadcast media here, I think, and broadcast media, with possibly the exception of some of the right-wing outlets these days, has never been about setting the agenda. Not compared with print media, not compared with some other outlets, not compared with social media, for example, either. Broadcast media doesn't, as a rule, set the agenda. Broadcast media tends to follow the agenda.
It was on every front page on Thursday, though. Oh, sorry. It was on every front page on Friday, though.
That's right.
Every front page led with it, bar one, I think.
Well, the media loves drama, and Farage delivers drama on demand. And because broadcast media in particular is a taker of the agenda, the whole setup is absolutely perfect for an individual with Farage's skill set to absolutely set the agenda.
So do we think then that Starmer should be doing much more regular broadcast? Should he be doing at least once a week, cameras following him around, seeing his day as it unfolds, a bit more fly on the wall of what the PM actually does every day?
Starmer's not the man to do this. Sticking Starmer on television twice a day isn't going to set the agenda. It's going to send people to sleep. Labour's problems from a comms perspective are deeper than simply getting airtime. It's what the hell you do with that airtime if you finally manage to sort of wrestle it away from Farage and his cronies. The amount of airtime they get is only one part of the problem. It really cannot be emphasised too much that being boring, being dull, being beige, being safe ain't good enough in the 21st century political arena. It just simply isn't. We've all been seeing what's happening in social media for 20 years now. We've seen how digital technology has changed the media landscape. We've seen how people like Farage and Trump, the snake oil salesmen, the showboaters of politics, have changed the rules. So simply sticking Starmer, or indeed Badenoch, or any traditional mainstream politician on air isn't going to cut it. And frankly, after a day or two of it, the editors are going to start slicing these clips out anyway, because they'll send people to sleep.
I actually think the problem's bigger. I think you can be technocratic and boring and dull and turn people off when you do broadcasts if you are wholly competent and you are a gold standard technocrat who is extremely good at delivery. I don't think he's either. And that is the really big problem. I think you could then layer on quite a few perceived punching down tactics that have happened in the first year and a half of the Labour government, meaning that your progressive left flank, who could tolerate you not being a great media performer and not being brilliantly charismatic, so long as you were lifting lots and lots of people out of poverty, which they certainly have done on children, but not when you are punching down by cutting foreign aid, punching down by bringing in or attempting to bring in pretty savage cuts to disability, punching down when it comes to putting employer nicks on the kinds of jobs that would be the most likely ones that people trying to get off benefits and into work would be going for, while not punching up and delivering on big radical wealth taxation, windfall taxes on the major corporates that have been posting record and surprise profit, etc. So I think it is more than just not being a great media performer. I think it is also not being a great person to actually deliver on things, combined with this perception that you're punching down on immigrants, you're punching down on the poor, you're punching down on people in other countries where their government was dependent on foreign aid, and not punching up enough on people like Trump. And Alex will disagree with me on that, but we know where I stand on that.
That's a reminder that more media airtime is very definitely, to use the cliche, a double-edged sword. If Starmer's on TV being interviewed 2 times a day, even if he's just giving pressers in the style of Team Trump, it's a huge set of opportunities for him to be cross-examined and grilled, and rather than setting the agenda again, find that they're on the receiving end of, a real battering if they're not careful.
Yeah. Right, let's wrap up this section with me asking you, who do you think will be the next big defection, Tory, Labour or otherwise, to reform?
Can't be bad enough. She's about the only one that's left now, honestly.
Quiet Riot. This podcast is brought to you by Carvana. Selling your car shouldn't feel like a second job. It should feel easy. With Carvana, it is. Just visit Carvana.com, enter your license plate or VIN, answer a few quick questions, and get an offer in minutes. Like what you see? We'll pick it up right from your door and hand you your check. No haggling, no hassle, no problem. Car selling made easy on Carvana. Pickup fees may apply.
Quiet Riot.
Finding a PhD topic that hasn't already been exhaustively researched is increasingly difficult. But for this next section, I can only assume our very own Highlander is considering a return to academia, because the field he's identified is, well, astonishingly under-researched. Animator Chuck Jones and his team famously followed a strict set of rules when creating Roadrunner cartoons, rules governing physics, violence, dialogue, and the laws of the universe itself. And Kenny, gazing upon the state of modern politics, began to wonder, what if those same rules are still in force and politicians simply don't know it? For those too young to remember, Roadrunner was a recurring experiment in hubris. A perpetually hungry Wile E. Coyote deploys increasingly elaborate Acme-branded gadgets to catch an effortlessly fast bird. The plans are complex, the confidence absolute, the results always the same. The coyote is flattened, exploded, or launched into the sun, while the bird escapes unharmed, emitting a light meep-meep and no further commentary. It's a cartoon about obsession, technological overreach, and the refusal to learn from repeated and very public failure. So I can probably see where we're going here. Basically, politics. Which raises the very obvious question, are the laws of our political universe secretly being enforced by Chuck Jones? Kenny, there are 10 rules in total. We're not going to go through all of them, partly for time, partly for the sake of what remains of my sanity, but I'm going to pick a few and I'm going to throw them to you for you to tell us which, like, political figure or story seems determined to obey that rule.
Okay.
How does that sound?
All right, let's give it a go and see where it goes. This is not going to be PhD level insight, just so you know.
All right, rule 1 is that the roadrunner cannot harm the coyote except by going meep meep. So who in politics is currently winning by kind of doing nothing?
Okay, winning might be doing too much lifting here. I think it's basically the traditional one nation conservative approach to basically everything since, well, essentially since Cameron. Kind of like the Roadrunner, they're oblivious and they're also blue. And like the Roadrunner, look, they do meep quite a lot.
They don't say anything.
But they don't achieve anything other than pointless survival. Their role really has been one of supporting characters to the dastardly Johnson, the even more dastardly Truss, Badenoch, Farage, and others. And yet, there is a part of me that thinks if you take them away, then the whole show starts to fall apart, because they're the closest thing centre-right politics has got to good guys right now. However, I think there's a danger here as well. Roadrunner's sort of relentless meepery and pointlessness has made him enemies amongst viewers in the cartoon world, and me included. You know, there's a lot of us wish that Coyote would finally catch the pointless bird and just put it and us out of our flipping misery. I think that's quite an important lesson for what's left of the old school Conservative Party. Now, I do suspect that this year, thanks in no small part to the May elections, that we are going to have a more vocal approach from parts of the traditional Conservative rump. I mean, it could hardly be more quiet, could they? But if they don't come out swinging and make themselves relevant, properly relevant in some way, then they are going to vanish over the horizon, muttering meep meep politely to one another. And you know, nobody else is going to give 2 hoots, to use another bird description right there.
So rule 6, Kenny, all action must be confined to the natural environment of the 2 characters, which of course is the Southwest American desert. So which political arguments are doomed to be like endlessly relitigated in the same hostile terrain, no matter how badly they go?
Well, listen, Chuck Jones' use of a desert setting was very useful to him and his team for a lot of reasons. I mean, it was instantly recognizable. That's very important in cartoon world. It's incredibly easy to animate, and he could impose his own rules upon that setting. And into it, then he was able to place a good guy and a bad guy, and the rest is cartoon history. Now, if instead of desert, you say something like Brexit, or more currently immigration, or indeed Venezuela, or whatever Trump is whinging on about today, then there are actually genuine parallels, because it's all about the simplicity of the environment which a certain soft politician or strategist chooses to create. So, like the Roadrunner's desert, it's instantly recognizable. It's incredibly easy to illustrate, especially with a relatively supine mainstream media. And it's incredibly easy to illustrate in a way that morphs reality. And you can draw it in really very, very broad and simple brushstrokes. There isn't any need for pesky details in this world. That, in turn, if we move to our politicians, that allows politicians to impose their own rules onto this environment. So, for example, right now and for the last few years, at its simplest, immigrants bad, indigenous Brits good. That, in turn, leads us to the importance of having super simple good guys and bad guys as the heroes and villains of the piece. We do actually live in a Looney Tunes world.
I'm feeling it. All right, I'm going to move us on. Rule 4, no dialogue ever except meep meep and yowling in pain. Which politicians would be vastly improved by sticking to just saying meep meep?
I'm just going to sit and listen to you sing Meep Meep for the rest of the week, bringing me no end of joy. I think the Meep Meep approach to life is essentially Trumpland, where everything is transactional. There's very little genuine discussion as such. You know, we're all painfully familiar with Trump's rambling speeches. Meep, meep, I'm brilliant. Meep, meep, People don't realize just how brilliant I am. Meep-meep, I'm strong. Meep-meep, everyone else is weak. What Trump says is utterly, utterly unimportant, but what he represents is very, very important indeed. And again, it's a dumbing down of politics to a level that none of us probably thought was possible. You know, the words play at very, very best a supporting role to the violence, to the scheming, and to the relentless me focus. And actually, on Trump's gravestone, we could quite legitimately inscribe not meep, but me.
Okay, yeah, I mean, look, I looked up Rule 5.
Oh, he's got to stay on the
Roadrunner
road because
must
he's a
stay on the
roadrunner.
road.
I know
Yeah,
this
for
one.
for no other reason than he's a roadrunner. And that one did resonate with me in your thesis that we're all living in a Looney Tune universe. And that's because there are so many political zombies out there. That keep coming back from the dead. They just stay on the treadmill long after they might have lost their seat or been sacked from a government position or front bench position, and they are on the sofas of the political chat shows. They are on the airwaves. They have their Substack columns. They pop up all the time. I mean, I would say Peter Mandelson fits that bill.
Yep.
They just don't seem to know that their time is over.
It's that relevance question again, isn't it? The fact that somebody stands up and makes some noise doesn't mean it's relevant noise that they're making, does it?
Indeed.
And in many ways, they become a distraction from what could be more important and hopefully younger and fresher voices as well. I think you've nailed something there.
And then Rule 7, finally, to wrap it all up. All tools, weapons, or mechanical conveniences must be obtained from the Acme Corporation.
Yes.
And so that one also made me chuckle. It made me think, is that Fujitsu? You know, they failed with the post office scandal. They are still being awarded fucking government contracts. You've got Capita that seem to run bloody everything. You've got the big four consultancies putting stuff into all of the major government departments to tell them that they need to cut costs and get rid of things. That felt, you know, pretty bloody true too. I mean, maybe not just Acme, but, you know, maybe it's a little bit more than that. But it does seem that there are a very few enormous conglomerates that seem to win most government contracts.
Yeah, well, we know that's the truth, don't we? If we were to take all the crazy shit that that Wile E. Coyote buys, we'd have to say that the dark corporation behind it all would be Temu, with a side order of Amazon just to line Jeff Bezos' pockets, of course.
Yeah. I mean, I think that in the Looney Tunes world, the Acme Corporation would 100% have been deemed too big to fail. I would have had to have been bailed out by the mayor of Looney Tunes if it was ever to be on the brink. Right, at this point, I think all that is left in Kenny's fever dream of the rules of our universe being dictated by Looney Tunes is to pause mid-air with the realization that this is going south and the long scream on the way down.
Quiet, Riot. Want to feel more confident with your finances this year? If you have 60 seconds, I can show you how quick and easy it is to start building healthy money habits that could last you the entire year just by using Rocket Money. Step 1, download Rocket Money. Step 2, link all your accounts and see your entire spending picture, your subscriptions, your upcoming bills, your due dates, everything. Step 3, tap a subscription you don't use and cancel it. Boom! That's money back every single month. Step 4, create a financial goal for something you want to save for, whether it be a vacation, a retirement account, or a pet's birthday. We don't judge. Now let the app automatically move small amounts of cash towards your goal. In a month, you'll see real dollars piling up. In a year, you'll be shocked at how much money you saved. Similar to the over 10 million members on the app that have saved up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. Use the Savings Challenge as one step closer to feeling better about your finances today at rocketmoney.com/cancel. That's rocketmoney.com/cancel. One more time, it's rocketmoney.com/cancel.
Quiet, Riot. It's back once again at the weekend rather than the main show, our most popular regular feature. As Kenny goes where snowflakes fear to tread, it's time, of course, for Wokie dokie.
Wokie dokie.
Kenny, what do you got for us?
Okay, well, the US Defense Department has told its own military newspaper, Stars and Stripes, which a lot of you will have heard of, this week that it's got to cut out, and I quote, woke distractions and refocus on, I quote, war fighters. And by woke, they really don't mean activism or ideology. I mean stories about service members' families, about veterans' healthcare, about diversity in the ranks, or occasionally asking awkward questions about how power is used. In other words, reporting. This is a paper that was founded during the Civil War, and it was deliberately protected by Congress so that it wouldn't just become a mouthpiece for whoever happens to be in charge.
Right.
There's a dream. But now, the Pentagon says troops need fewer distractions and more coverage of fitness, weapons, and combat readiness, because clearly nothing undermines morale like acknowledging that soldiers are human beings living in the real world.
Wait. So is life woke?
Well, it's worse than that, or better depending on your viewpoint. What they're saying is that guns and silence are patriotic.
Yeah.
But this week, what they're also saying is that reality itself is woke.
Quiet, Riot.
And on that distressingly woke note, let's wrap this one up, Naomi. Thank you, listeners, for spending your weekend with us once again. Happy Sunday to all of you that are listening on a Sunday, especially if you've got doggos on the lead. We'll be back again on Thursday with the main show, but don't forget to keep an eye on Arthur's Behind the Lines podcast too, for more foreign policy insights in these ever more mad and ever so slightly Looney Tunes time.
In the meantime, do give our show some love by leaving us a review, sharing an episode with a friend, and following us over on Blue Sky, where we've got a lovely starter pack of regular guests for you to follow.
Remember, we love you lots.
Bye.
Bye.
Quite Right is an audio production by Cooler Heads with Naomi Smith and Alex Andreou. Produced by Kenny Campbell. Music by Mariana Sangita. Artwork by Simona Canelu. And edited by me, Alex Reese.
Riot.
Meep meep.